Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being part of our global summit on sandboxes, SROs, and economic zones. Today, I have a very special speaker who is part of this panel about sandboxes, the Commissioner Peirce, and she is going to be speaking with us about her vision from both locally as well as around the world. I know that, Commissioner, you have some disclaimers that you would like to share first before I hop into the questions. So I'm going to let you go ahead and share that, and we really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here. And I will start with my disclaimer, which is that my views are my own views as a commissioner, not necessarily those of the SEC or my fellow commissioners.
We appreciate that. So I've been following your journey for a very long time, and I was reading the road trip article that you posted. And you had a lot of different views and wisdom within that. And for those that are just learning about, your journey, that will be also linked into our recording down the road. But where do you think we're going right now? Where do you think that the cryptocurrency, digital asset industry will be in 2 years? Because there's been a lot of shifting that's gone in the space, even in the last decade. So where do you think we're going to be?
It's difficult for me as a regulator to anticipate where the industry will go. But what I hope to do is to provide a regulatory framework within which the industry can do experimentation and figure out where the technology, where blockchain technology has its highest and best use. I think that's something that's been, at least in the United States, in the past several years, has been hard because of the lack of certainty. And so I look forward to seeing that. And I think there'll be instances where people try the technology and realize it's not a good fit for something. And there'll be other instances in which people do realize it's a good fit. I think that we'll see that in the financial services industry, for example. I think there'll be some things that people realize that blockchain is really good for. Others, they may try it and not find it to be the case. I think we'll see some tokenization of traditional securities. And then I expect, too, that we'll see a lot of activity in the native crypto space.
I know that you're a leader and a visionary in this space, and you've been a proponent for sandbox mentality and having a more open mind, not to not protect consumers, but to support innovation. So where do you see that happening now that there's been a shift of administration and with you being in charge of so many pieces of this?
Well, a couple things. First, I don't view myself as a leader. I view myself as a facilitator so that people who have ideas about how things can move forward and change, that they can innovate. And so I hope that we can facilitate that. I think that's the role of a regulator in my position, is to try to make sure that the barriers to entry are low, that people can get in. We have a 3-part mission at the SEC, which involves among other things, protecting investors. So that is something that I think about. But one way that investors get protected is by making sure that the industry that serves them is competitive. If you have an industry that has high barriers to entry, it's hard for new competitors to come in, then you actually end up with investors getting less well served than they otherwise would. Because the competitors sitting there within their regulatory moat get really comfortable, and they stop caring what investors care about caring about the same things that investors care about at the end of the day. So trying to build that really dynamic marketplace requires a regulator that is able to to accommodate and encourage innovators to come in. And that means coming in and telling us, hey, here's a place where your rules don't work that well. Here's a place where we need some exemptions. And that may sound strange to someone who isn't used to the securities regulatory space, but it's actually quite normal, because when Congress built the statutes that govern what we do, they put in the ability for us to make exemptions. And so we can use the ability that Congress gave us. They understood that the landscape would change, that we would need to make adjustments. And so we can use that authority to allow people to experiment in an iterative way. And so that's something that I think we can do with something like a sandbox. We can allow people to try things using a set of conditions that is a little different from what standard transactions are subject to. And then, again, those we'll be watching what the activity is in that space, see if those conditions work, and then we can get to a place where there's more permanent relief based on modified conditions.
Are there any countries or communities that you think that we should maybe model this type of mindset around? Because a lot of communities and countries around the world have lessons that we can learn from, and they have also extended out their innovation because of the fact that they're allowing for this, I don't want to say experimentation, but to have the problem solved within a safe spot.
And I think experimentation is a fair word. You're running an experiment in a highly regulated industry, which means that the regulator is watching what you're doing, but you also have the ability to make some modifications that allow you to try things. And I think getting that balance right of where the regulator is aware of what you're doing, but the regulator isn't sitting with you at every step as you think through every issue is important, because otherwise you end up with, I think, the regulator being too involved in trying to direct the experimentation. There are good examples, I think, in other countries of the sandbox idea, people trying different things, and we'll draw on those. I think there's no one that I want to claim and say is our example, because our regulatory and statutory framework is unique. I mean, certainly we've seen examples in the UK and Singapore and Japan and other places where people have been trying different approaches, Switzerland, and we'll be drawing from all of those, but I don't think there's one that we're going to take a direct model from.